Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Anne-Marie, I'm not sure who's been looking forward to this more, you or me. Right?
Oh yeah, I was so good when we didn't do it 2 weeks ago, so I'm so thrilled to be here today.
I'm thrilled on a couple levels, not the least of which, our guest who was scheduled to be here 2 weeks ago didn't make it because I screwed up. And the best part was he just told me he didn't even remember that. So it just goes to show. It just goes to show the things that we worry about, the other person isn't even aware of. They aren't even thinking about the same kind of thing. It's a great reminder that we beat ourselves up about stuff we don't need to beat ourselves up about. So anyway, he also has one of the coolest names in existence, right? We've had a number of people on lately who have really cool names, but this guy has a really cool name.
We really have.
His name is Marcus Aurelius Hicks. I mean, we actually had a couple, I think it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we had another guest who had a name from Greek mythology. What was his name? His first name came from one of the characters. I can't remember who it is. So there's a theme going on here, right?
A Roman theme.
Very cool stuff. Can I ask you how you got the name?
Yeah, you could ask me, most definitely, and I will answer if you ask me. So
okay. So how did you get the
name? When I was being born, or during that time, my father would go back and forth from the hospital, and I think he was listening to a Jim Rohn tape. But there's one where he's speaking about responsibility, and he mentions Marcus Aurelius, and he's like, "Hey, that guy says some nice things." He named me Marcus Aurelius, and
cool.
I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's a great way to get a name. I like because Jim Rohn. I mean, that's a name, right? I mean,
yeah, that is a name.
Yeah,
and I will say that I do keep a copy of Meditations with me wherever I go.
There you go. All right.
And he has greatly influenced my life. This is my book of poetry. I was not planning to promote this, But when I heard you're a poet laureate, Anne-Marie, I was just like, hey, another lover of words. And this is my book here.
Yes, definitely.
Inspire life through words of well-being.
Words of well-being. All right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Personal meditations and poetry. Hey.
There was actually another thing that would have been really serendipitous if we had you successfully on the show 2 weeks ago like we planned, because on Mondays I do 2 episodes. I do this one, and then I do another one in 3 hours with a good friend who was actually one of my earliest interviews 12 years ago. And the topic that we did that day was Marcus Aurelius. Totally coincidental. We had not planned. It's just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then to miss the interview, that was the craziest part. But no, we were talking about it because my friend is such a devotee of the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. Because I mean, he's one of the, I can't say he's one of the founders of it, but he is one of the leading spokesmen of a thought pattern that has been carried down through the generations. And I mean, I was learning things about him I didn't even know. I mean, you're about to tell me, so go ahead and tell me.
You see me chomping at the bit, right?
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
So Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations, which is thoughts with himself for himself as the emperor of Rome at the time, and he's going through all this stuff, craziness. And he's keeping a diary and journal, and it would have been lost to antiquity had his servant not wrapped it up and saved it for over all these decades and then finally sold it off. So he would have lived the same life that he lived. And this one book that he wrote, which was his journal, would have been lost to history. So like there are 3 main voices in Stoicism, as you were speaking about, and none of them actually wrote a book. Right. Seneca used to write letters that they kept. And then Epictetus, one of his students wrote his book. And Marcus Aurelius wrote a diary. And if I may, please, it will be just 10 seconds.
Go for it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's
It's called Why Marcus Reflected on and Revealed His Greatness to Himself. Oh. So one of the Stoic practices is at the beginning of the day, say who you want to be, identity. And then at the end of the day, you reflect on and see if you're living into your identity.
Okay.
So watch this. Not for the fortune, nor for the fame, not for the crowd to call out his name. Rather, he strived to reflect on and reveal his greatness of who he was to himself with the breath he had that single day, so that in ages to come, when after he was done and gone, and only a faded echo of his simple story remained, I, the future audience of one, might see awesomeness within me, standing on a name, on shoulders, and know that I too am invited by the infinite flow of life to express my innate greatness from within, without constraint.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool. See, you just
Beautiful
basically
words.
laid out for people why it is that even though he wasn't one of the founders of the Stoic school, he is pretty much seen by historians as the leader of it, like the leading school.
I wouldn't ever say if there's a leader. It's a thought that is refined again and again, because he read books from Plato and so on. He was a student of philosophy, of how to live a good life.
Sure.
And when you live a good life, let it be that there's no greater privilege than to be who you are. And when it is told, let them know it is a privilege to hear your story. Live a good life and live it for an audience of one, just yourself. And if other people hear it, let them be like, oh yeah, no, I could live a good life too.
Well, actually, that's how we end up having this program. I mean, the program originally was about exploring law of attraction, but after the first few hundred episodes, you kind of had it covered, and I wanted to keep going because I was enjoying it. And so since then, we just had all these people coming onto the show, sharing their stories, telling their stories. So this is welcome to the forum. This is where you do it.
Hey, it's good to be here. I'm glad I
meet the best
space,
people.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. No.
I mean, you attract your tribe, right?
That's
Even
right.
if you're 2 weeks late.
Hey, we never passed the time
never.
frame on. Right. We never passed the time frame on stuff showing up. We just said, it's going to come. It's just, a question when we're willing to let it in. Well, I was willing to let it in today.
Oh,
so anyway,
man.
the main reason we brought you on too was because not just because you have this cool name, which you really do, and not because that you were influenced by it, which you clearly were, but also you have a thing. You focus a lot of attention on helping parents of preteens. And I know that caught Anne Marie's attention because she has a couple of them.
A couple? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I may sit at your feet and learn. So I am a communication coach for parents of preteens. And at that time, that transition phase, how we are the stories we tell ourselves. My background is communication, journalism. And after that, I went and I've taught around the world, South Korea, Spain, Thailand, and Saudi Arabia. And I'm tapped into human development. I love how people develop. I love psychology. I love people. I really do. And I don't love your kids as much as you. So I decided to come out of the classroom and still use my unique skills to leverage it, which is, I told my friend, if you have a healthy attachment with your kid for lifelong, like that's really what I want. You don't even need to know my name. But the quality of our communication is directly related to the quality of our life. And I have communication skills. And this is where I decided to put my energy. Mr. Roger said, if you want to help the kids, support the parents. So yeah. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah. A lot of people focus on the children, but actually teaching the parents the right habits at home, that makes a difference.
Well, yes, and so it's called allo parenting. We parent in pods. We need community. So I'm focusing on community wherever it is. And I was in the classroom, and I think in the future, we're actually going to move more to a community-based education system. I think the old model is phasing out traditional education, but yeah. Focus on people who need help. Life supports those who support life.
Okay, so now he just gave me, Emery, he gave me the line of question I'll add toward the later part of the show, right? The alternative form of community-based education, because we have a whole thing we can talk about there. But I want to stick with what we got right now, because what we have is pretty cool. So you have a model that you use to describe and discuss this. which I believe you call the show up model. Talk about that model a bit.
The show up framework, yeah.
Framework. Okay.
So it's human development. Show up framework. I work with the parents to put their mask on first so that they can be there for the kid as they're dysregulated, understandably, during this transition into adolescence. And what it is, S is start with a strong identity. All behavior comes from identity. James Claren, that's just life. Because we believe we're something, we act in a certain way. And right there, I'm working with the virtues and values, and philosophy comes into this. But virtues and values are with all faith beliefs, all people, if you're human, you have virtues. And that's scientific from positive psychology. You can take a test, VIA, virtues in action. And it's accessible language you can use with kids, such as creative, leadership, so on and so on. Because there are 5 that are expressed uniquely in each person. And then values just means what's important to you. Is it finance? Is it family? Is it pleasure or fun? Like, people have different values. Mm-hmm. So when I see your virtues and values, I can speak to you. I can speak to a relevant message, because a message is more impactful when it's relevant. So I'm speaking to your identity, right? So that's where it starts. Now, mind you, as I go through this framework, I'm going to tell you, I'm speaking with the parent for them. It's personal development with the thing that's most relevant to them, which is their kid. Mm-hmm. But these same principles are what you use with kids in their development. It's kind of meta, but the best way to teach is to learn twice. So you're teaching the parent how to see what development is. I speak a mile a minute, so please let me know, like, jump in and interject and ask questions whenever you need. Okay. So we have S, starts with a strong identity. H is hold space for collaboration and critical thinking. Whenever someone's going through problems or stressors, they often think, what's wrong with me? Whereas I see you have a bit of wisdom here. You know, that's life in. Life is going to do its thing. Life is filled with stressors. That's how we grow, because life is about development and growing. So we critically think and we collaborate with them. And there's a framework to this. It's called collaborative problem solving or autonomy supportive parenting. If you don't even look at my stuff, look up autonomy supportive parenting, because what it is I'm going to support you in being who you are from your identity. And I give you boundaries, but within those boundaries, I want your full expression. I see the machines working. What are you thinking of, Walt?
Oh, I think about a lot of things. I as I'm listening to somebody make their presentation, I'm kind of keeping a catalog of different points that I want to come back to later on. So that's what I'm thinking about.
You're all good. So there's that. Critical thinking and collaboration is one of the 21st century skills. It's like, if you know how to do that, you'll never be without a job. You guys are collaborating right now, working towards a shared goal, going through issues, critical thinking. That's what we do as humans. O is open up communication. Yeah. There's a way you communicate with a preteen because they are sensitive going into adolescence, and they're sensitive biologically, understandably so. Life is pushing them out of the nest, or preparing them to be pushed out the nest at pre-adolescence. Do you know birds, they actually take the down out of the nest so that the spikes reveal themselves, so that birds will jump out?
I didn't know
really?
that.
Yeah. So when they're in the eggshells, they fill the bottom with down, and then as the babies start to get to where they should fly, they take the down out, so they're actually spikes exposed. W is wonder and explore this world together. And it's project-based learning. It means doing hard things for an extended period of time that are self-directed. So it's you choose to do something that's effortful, and you're supported in that again. This comes from Angela Duckworth's Grit. It's teaching kids how to choose their path and then stick with it when it gets hard. However, you're doing this as a parent, so maybe your project is the podcast. Maybe your project is a business. Your project is keeping the family together, you know? And it gives you a space or a common ground to talk about, again, the stresses of life and what development is. Mm-hmm. And then W is wonder and explore the world together. Up, UP, is unveil your potential, which means celebrate. we don't celebrate enough. When you live into your idea and you do awesomeness, it's like, that's like you. And when you fall short of that, it's like, hey, it's cool. Life is life. And again, let's repair it. Let's step back into our identity and let's get back at it. But UP is unveil your potential and celebrate. That's the framework. Now, everything that I communicate and how I work with a parent is through that framework.
Any thoughts, Anne-Marie, or do I move on with my questions? Oh, well, her screen is frozen up for a second. Here she comes. Hey,
she's in awe. Was she frozen or was she in awe?
To be fair, it's along the same lines. Not that I'm saying I'm the perfect parent by any means, because I'm not. But it's the kind of stuff that I try to do with my two. And they're so different, and what works for one obviously won't work for the other. And it's trying to navigate what works for each individual, because they're little people. They're very different. So yeah, and then that last one where it's like, celebration. We've always focused on celebrating your wins and celebrating doing well. And now it's just like, I'm going to twist that into like, are you proud of yourself? Do you think you did a good job? Are you happy with that? So it's not about pleasing me.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's teaching them to celebrate those little wins.
The voice with which you speak to your child eventually becomes the voice with which they speak to themselves. And as we model it for them, I love how you're turning their attention back to themselves to say, hey, because that's what we do in independence. It's like, you have sought me to soothe, to secure, to make sure you're safe and make sure you're seen. Yet in independence, I need you to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's not the final form. We're eventually going to come back to interdependence, where we do that for each other, but we can take care of ourselves as we do that for each other. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, well, I know. Yeah, I know that look real well. So yes, I get it. So
I can see it.
I can go with this. I'm going to go in one particular direction. It's the one I was going to say for later, but I actually want to bring it in now, because I do not have children of my own, but I have been involved in education. Particularly, I helped to found a couple of alternative schools to help. Yeah. And the thing that was really cool about both of the schools is that they were student driven. In other words, the students basically ran the show. We started this at a time when that was not particularly popular, so it was a little bit of a challenge, and it ultimately did really, really well, as long as that pattern of the students being charged held, and it fell apart when, quite honestly, the parents interfered. Because there's that very strong tendency that parents have to want to fix things, to make things right for their kids. And the challenge there is that can actually work against the success that a child has with their own education. So I wanted to get your comments on that.
Okay, beautiful setup. When you're doing project-based learning, there are elements to it. It has to be public facing. It has to be sustained inquiry. Sometimes it goes very slow because you're trying to figure it out as you're going forward. Now, here's the thing about project-based learning. There is a intended outcome. When you fall short of that, that's actually part of the lesson. Where parents oftentimes, I don't want to say go wrong, but it's a natural tendency that we feel judged, and we feel judged by our kids' expression to the community. So like if let me calm down. If we see they're going to fail, or if they're not going to make something, we want to come in and make it right for them. That's why we end up doing their homework. That's why we end up lying to make sure that they get certain scholarships, because we feel judged by their shortcomings. So then we go to fix it up. However, they don't learn. If the whole point of it is to learn, then we're actually robbing them of that lesson.
Yeah. One of the best metaphors or analogies that I know to describe the effect that we're talking about is what happens when a butterfly emerges from a chrysalis. And I can tell from the nodding up and down, you know that.
Yeah, please tell us, Walt. Yes, that's exactly what it
when,
is.
When a butterfly emerges from a chrysalis, it literally needs to beat its way out of the chrysalis in order to strengthen its wings. Otherwise, it can't fly. So if a human intervenes because it feels bad for this butterfly that's beating its wings, he'll actually kill the butterfly by helping him. You can kill a butterfly with kindness.
Well, one way I like to think of it is everything that eventually grows must first break. That's just my understanding, right? If there's breakage from the outside, it dies. If it breaks from the inside, it lives. And I think of the chrysalis and the butterfly. I also think of an egg. It has to break from the inside out. And when you make that environment for that context, for there to be breakage, they know how to deal with it. They learn and they grow from that. And they're made stronger in the broken places.
Right. Yeah. One of the other things that I found to be really cool about the model that we were following, but by the way, I don't know if you know the model, it's called the Sudbury model, based on a school.
Sudbury?
Sudbury, S-U-D-B-U-R-Y. Sudbury.
Okay.
Out of a school in Massachusetts. But in the Sudbury model, literally the kids are in charge of everything. I mean, like running the school, like the whole thing.
Sure.
Which is pretty challenging for adults, shall we say, for a lot of obvious reasons. But it's also very cool to watch. One of the things that is really interesting is watching how a kid goes through that kind of an open process where they really are in charge, and especially if they've come from a previous experience with the public schools, because one of the first things that they will try to do when they come from the public schools is they will try to impress the adults, because that's what you do. That's how you survive. That's how you thrive in a public school setting. Now, if the adults are on their game and staying true to the model, they're not biting, which is the hard part, because you really want to bite, but no, you can't bite. You gotta just let them figure it out. They can ask you questions. They can, certainly you are a resource to them. You can explain how things work and so forth, but they're always looking for you in those early stages to solve the problems for them. And it's the hardest thing to learn is it's not my job to solve the problem for you.
So hard.
Well, I remember when I was teaching 5th grade, we had this thing of, sounds like a you problem. And the thing was, one, you need to know what you want. So you have these conversations with the kids. What do you want? What do you want to make? And then if they're falling short of that, when I say it sounds like a you problem, you're responsible for solving it. Because they started saying it to each other as if a rude way of, I don't want to help you. And I would tell them, no, that's not what it means. It means you get to solve it. And I said, there are some problems where we need to seek support. And there was a problem in the classroom with a pipe bursting or something. I said, this is a me problem because my job is to keep you safe and secure. And I'm asking you, can you please help me with my problem? So then I said, hey, I'm responsible for solving this. This is a me problem. And I'm asking you, can you please help me? Just, But if it's a you problem, I used to tell them that when they would ask me for help with some things, and I'm just like, no, I think you got this. Like, go for it. I got you got this.
Yeah, that's a very enlightened viewpoint. I love it. Yeah. I love it entirely. One of the most challenging things with a model like this, and it sounds like the approach that you take is similar. There's a lot of overlap in the way that you do it. But one of the big challenges with this kind of approach is letting it play out long enough that you actually get to see something cool happen. Because when you do get to see something cool happen, it really is cool. One of the best things that came out of the first school that I created, I didn't create it myself. I had a whole team of people we were creating it with. But one of the best things that came out, there was a young girl. She was around 11 when the school founded.
Okay.
She lived in foster care. She came from a, quote, broken family, unquote. Her father was non-existent. Her mother was an interesting person in her own way.
Okay.
No, I can't comment on that. I don't really know. I'm not sure about that. But the point is that it wasn't the healthiest environment. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I got you.
And this was an angry kid. She was on medications galore, which so often happens with kids who are in foster care. She was sullen. She was just a very, very unhappy kid. In that culture that we established in that school, not only did she thrive, she became the school president.
Wow.
And to this day, she's now in her 30s. I'm so proud of the human being that she has become, because she is so different from that angry, sullen child of age 11.
Oh man, yeah. I've when I say kids move towards your expectations,
Yeah.
When I was in Spain, we used to have this program for the truant kids, and I remember saying, "Hey, I want to go over there and help them." And my coordinator, my chairperson, said, "You don't want to go with them. They're the bad kids."
No.
It broke my heart, man.
Wow.
And I'll tell you about this real brief study just to add to the conversation, and then we can go wherever. But there were these rats, and they were set out, and there were random notes put above the rat's name of dumb, smart, dumb, smart, dumb, smart. They ran them through the maze, and all the dumb rats came in with slower times, and all the smart rats came in with faster times.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, expectation.
Now, mind you, I'm not making this up. Like, this is, and this is not woo-woo.
Yeah,
this is not woo-woo.
No, there's a lot of science behind this. There's a lot of science that's been done on this.
I need to actually look up the name of the study so that when I do quote it, people can look it up exactly. The long and short is, the researchers, when they saw smart rats, they handled the rats with more care. And it would lower the heart rates of the rats, so they were more relaxed when they ran through the race. The dumb rats, they didn't handle as well, and they did not have as good times. Now, in human development, that's called the Pygmalion effect. I can't remember exactly. I believe it's Pygmalion effect.
Yeah.
Where they told teachers, these students are high achievers, these students are low achievers.
Yes.
When actually they were both neutral.
Yes. That
And
classic
kids,
1950s studies. A lot of studies done that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, as a teacher, when I'm in front of the class, I'm always going to hold a high expectation for you. And I'm going to give evidence and examples as to why I believe that. So I'm establishing my belief, and then I'm looking for evidence of that to share with you. Because it's not like I'm just pulling this belief out of my hat. Like, no, I really do believe that.
I love this. This is one of my favorite topics too. We haven't talked in a long time on this program. We meet quite a bit, but it's been a couple of years. But Anne-Marie, let's go to you and what you're thinking about with your kids, because you are very creative in the way that you work with your kids. You don't really buy into some existing structure someplace. You do it your way, because I've gotten that very clearly from the conversations we've had over the years. But when you're hearing what we're talking about here, what's resonating the most with you?
I think it's giving kids their independence, giving kids their own power back. And that's something I fully believe. I mean, my girls are strong, confident girls. One of them not so much as the other one. But I also, I own when I'm not being the best mum, when I'm hormonal or angry and tired or whatever it is, I own that. And then I show them that I own that, so I just try to teach them the good behaviors. And it's like I say to them, one, I'm here to mess you up because you've got to learn. And two, my job is to just prepare you for the world, so that when you leave me, you've got every skill you need, or the skills you need to become a successful, happy adult. That's all that matters. Even with education, I'm like, yes, do your best. But you can always go back to university or college or whatever when you're older. Nothing has to be, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's just like, find your feet, have fun with it, enjoy it, have the experience. So that's kind of how my style is. And like I say, I'm not perfect mum by any means, but I own that.
If you were perfect, you'd be the first one. So I'm glad you're not.
Exactly. If I was perfect, that would probably mess them up a bit more, really. But I do say to them, it is my job to mess you up a bit.
I love how you give yourself permission for that too. Because that's what you're saying, right? When you say I'm going to mess you up a bit, that's giving yourself permission.
Absolutely, because how many parents, like you say, that, oh my gosh, so and so at number 3 is going to judge me, my kids are making too much noise, or this, and then so and so's, you know, there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of people comparing their children, and actually that's not nice. I wouldn't like it if my husband went to his mates and said, my wife does this and your wife is, my wife's better, and you know, that's a lot of pressure. You don't want to do that to your kids. So, you know, just be their big supporters. And as they get older, because one's 12 tomorrow, one's 8, with the 12-year-old, it's really letting her go off now and go out with your friends, and I'm going to trust you until I can't trust you, and consequences and things like that. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of how they're turning out. So I don't think I'm doing too bad a job, but you know, I'm human.
Well, I don't think you're doing a bad job at all. I think you're doing a great job. So let's give credit where credit. What was the W? The W, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the W.
The UP, unveil your potential and celebrate. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We have to give credit for that kind of stuff to ourselves. I mean, there are so many different ways we find fault with ourselves, hold ourselves up as not being perfect, as if I don't even know what perfect means. If somebody could please explain to me what that is, that would be very helpful, because I've been trying to figure that one out.
Unachievable. I think it's unachievable.
You know what? Well, yeah, yes, and let me throw some nuance here in this conversation. I love this word. So I love words. Anne Marie, you're a poet. You say no. I love words as well.
Well, I used to write a lot of poetry. Writing is how I get my emotions out. So when I was from 7 and I was one of those kids who had a bit of a childhood and learned through experience, poetry was my release. That's how I got my words out.
Process. There you go. Well, the word perfect, per means each, and fect means complete or finished. So it means each thing is complete, right? And that's actually how we get present perfect, or the perfect tense. Perfect tense means one action was completed before the other.
Right.
I think we are perfect. And what I mean by that is this moment is full. There's a fullness to this moment. But the moment has passed on. As we're experiencing time, understanding of time, we've moved on from that moment and it's complete. And we're in a new moment, which is the fullness of the moment. And we're on to another one. We're perfect and we're also growing, we're developing. So we have to break on the edges. We have to break on the edges, break on the edges. So to be perfect actually mean perfect in growth. We're not complete, we're not finished, so we're not that perfect. But we're the type of perfect that keep on growing. Yeah.
I like that on a number of different levels, because ultimately, when we're complete, we're dead. We're done with this life and moved on. I mean, that's true completion at that point.
That's complete.
Yeah. So if that's the goal, then fine. But how about in the meantime?
The goal would be to grow. Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, the goal is to grow.
Yeah. It's.
So
I mean, you mentioned it. Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
No, I was just going to ask, because I was just wondering, do you, because you obviously work with the parents, do you get to see the results that has on the children?
So these are the principles I taught in class. I'm looking to get some case studies mid-August to start my program. These are the conversations I had in parent-teacher meetings, right? And to see the results I did see in class were the results me directly working with them.
Okay.
I'm doing this go around to get case studies to actually report proof, evidence, and examples of I can do what I do.
Awesome.
And I'll also say a nation, I have sayings for everything, but a nation is made great by men who plant trees for shade they'll never see. And I don't need to see it. Like, I've moved on from classes and come back years later and you're just like, yeah, no, I remember this. I remember you actually cared. Like, stuff does come back, but I'm not, hey, I have teachers that I want to go back and say thank you to, that I probably never will.
Mm-hmm.
I got to look them up now. They're coming to mind. But if I do or if I don't, that's just how life is. We've crossed paths, and I really want the best for you. And if we're still in each other's sphere, and yeah, relationships continue. But yeah, there's going to see ripples that they're going to be ripples that I don't see.
Yeah, of course.
It's a very interesting viewpoint, and I'm going to bring this one up later on too.
You keep saying later. How much time are we talking?
Well, we got 25 minutes left, so you know.
Okay, we got later.
No, I can just think. I can just see how I'm going to be, tying certain things together, and I probably won't get to them all, but that's all right. I can just see how I want to tie things in. One thing I do want to follow up on though is you chose preteen for a reason. Why preteen? I mean, there are a lot of possible age groups you could pick, but you picked that one.
Yeah. As a wiser gentleman of our community, I think you'll understand this. I think the whole point about life is to understand who we are, right? Know thyself and you'll understand the secrets of gods and men. We understand that when we go through our transitions, through our stressors, and there are major stressors of life. First, coming out of the womb. The first with sound effects.
It was that simple.
And the first major one is coming into adolescence. It's our first major transition. The next one being a young adult. Next one probably taking on a family, and then middle age, older age, and transition. But if you can instill these values at an earlier age, you have more influence. And I really did sit down and I said, how could I leverage this to answer the mental health crisis? Like, what would be the most effective thing? I'm using the person that has the most influence over the kid before digital media gets their hooks in them to do it in the most effective way, which is communication and storytelling. At the age where they're most influential. That's why it's called formative years. There's this book by this guy named Stephen Cope called The Great Work of Your Life. And it looks at Jane Goodall. It looks at Emerson. It looks at Robert Frost. And they had a lot of these influences when they were preteens or adolescents. Because we're coming into the world and that's when it's most alive and vibrant for us. And there's still that balance of childlike wonder before the burdens of adulthood or expectations. And I think that's where you get that's why it's called the formative years. So yeah, there's a reason I specifically chose this age.
It's such it's a very interesting viewpoint. It's actually a very different one from my viewpoint. And the reason I say that is I'm very cognizant, and I'm going to be curious to see what Anne-Marie says about this because she's currently in the midst of it. But I'm very cognizant of just how much smarter each generation is, just how much more aware, how much more engaged in different ways than what the previous generations might have wanted. But it's a much greater level. I think there are a lot of reasons why that happens. But regardless of what those reasons are, I'd like to engage with kids at any level, at any age, from the viewpoint of awe and admiration. In other words, you guys have something to teach me. I can't wait to find out what it is.
Yeah.
So it isn't so much for me about what kind of influence I'm going to have on them. It's what kind of influence they're going to have on me.
For sure.
So yes, and I think we're saying the same thing. Because the word educate means to bring forth. The etymology or the root of parent means to bring forth. And again, when I'm interacting with a kid, I'm not trying to impress you or I'm not trying to make impact. I am creating the environment for you to express yourself. And I think that's what a good teacher does. A good teacher says, there is awesomeness laying inside. Like, show me, like, what's up? I'll support you in every way of your expression. Yeah, let's do this. So I agree with you.
And it's fun to watch. It's fun to see how that expression takes place, what forms it takes.
Sometimes you don't agree, but you hold space.
I've actually, I don't know. I maybe it's because I've never had my own kids, so maybe I have a different perspective because of that. But I can't ever recall interacting with a child where my disagreement rose to a point where it was important. It just wasn't.
I love kids that.
I thought, well, you're probably going to set yourself up there, but it didn't matter that much to me.
I love kids that I can send home to their parents too.
Yeah. As one who keeps them, yeah, I find that a bit tough sometimes. But I think, to them, just things like tidying your room, it doesn't seem important to them. It doesn't matter. I don't mind it. But actually, I'm just trying to teach them, like, we're a household, we're a community in a house, we're working together. And actually, if we do these things to help each other out, and your part is, this is your responsibility. So they're like, what? I don't care. And I'm like, so yeah, I find there's times as a parent, it's just, yeah, it does get very frustrating. And sometimes it does feel worth it, but that could just be my ego kicking in, which probably is. But, there's things you want to teach them along the way. But I think it's also things that I found important when I was growing up is, I had 2 working parents, and me and my brother helped out. And we were literally sort of like, we couldn't run that house, just 2 of them. It was 4 of us. And that's what I'm trying to teach them.
I think it's when they're a mismatch of values. And again, values is what's important to you. Clean room is not important to them. Yeah. And then it's when you're trying to sustain somebody's life who doesn't match your values, and then they're creating more stress. That's when I say I don't love your kids as much as you. Like, I say it tongue in cheek. There's a little bit of truth in every joke, and there's a little joke in every truth.
Yes.
But
yeah, I do find, certainly, as you said, like, they seem to be like a whole new race nowadays. They are so confident, and they are smart, and they have it. They have a lot, but then I also think that, I'm Gen X, so we were out on our bikes, we were out 24/7, and they can't necessarily do that nowadays. It's not so safe, and it's a different world. But also they want to stay in, and they want to communicate via digital and things like that. So it's just trying to get those balances. So I think, yeah, they are amazing. I think they're navigating quite a tough world at the moment, but I think they've got the skills to do it. They've certainly got that power. That's what I think with my girls anyway.
As they remind you every day, right?
Well and truly.
That's what I mean when I say I really admire the next generations, no matter, I think my admiration has actually increased as I've gotten older. Each generation seems even more impressive than the last one, for good reason, I guess. But I've just become enthralled. Like, I can hardly wait to see what's going to come out of them next. I really can't wait. I do see things that, you mentioned, Marcus, the idea that there are going to be some things that don't match my values, and sure, that definitely happens. The thing that I'm always reminding myself is that's me, that's not them. So I'm trying to remind myself that's just my perception. My perception, it's like we talked about earlier. I had this big perception that you were all upset because I screwed up 2 weeks ago, and you didn't even remember the damn thing. It's the same kind of thing. The perceptions that we have about the younger generations are in our heads. They have nothing to do with what's going on with the younger generations. It's what's going on inside our own heads. And the sooner that we recognize that, the happier our own lives are going to be, first of all, and the easier it's going to be to interact with the younger generations. Oh, you're muted. I don't know what happened there, Marcus. It's got a rhythm to it. That's pretty cool. I love that. We ought to turn that into a theme or something.
What happened? What happened?
It was some kind of clicking noise when you were working on it.
Yeah, like it was, had a rhythm.
My wireless mic died.
Oh dear.
I was gonna say, anything in life is not the thing; it's your response to the thing. You are the universe experiencing itself.
Yeah,
and it has your back.
That's right.
Yeah. I was gonna say earlier that every generation has its unique challenges though.
Sure.
And the challenge.
Oops, we just lost
Oh,
you again.
lost you again.
By the way, this is par for the course on this show. Just so you know, we routinely have technical issues pop up because we're so high vibe, so high energy. We literally affect the technology, and that has happened. That we have actually demonstrated this. We've had the equivalent of scientific studies that we've done, where we can point to this is where the energy is peaking. Watch out for what happens with the electronics, and you can see it happen. It plays, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not making this up.
It really does.
This is true.
No.
This is the way it actually works. Yeah. So you're not out of alignment here, Marcus. You're doing just fine.
It's a good sign, obviously.
It is. Yes. So let's see. Do you have your microphone back? Nope. Not hearing you.
Am I there now?
Ah, there we go. Now we got it.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say to Anne-Marie's point, yeah, it's the digital divide, if you will, or in the book The Anxious Generation, that these sets of kids are growing up behind screens, and because of that, they don't know the anxiety of actually having connection, in-face person-to-person connection. Oxytocin is only released through eye-to-eye contact or physical touch, and then that's leading to the loneliness epidemic, and then that's why they're being anxious when they're actually in settings with other people, and it's its own challenge, yeah, for this generation. But
I've certainly found that with my kids, just even when they go to a restaurant and it's like, no, they'll say, oh, I don't want to order. And it's like, no, you order, you have that conversation with the waitress. It's just teaching those skills, or you can go and buy that. I'm not going for you. You go and do it and just ask for it. Oh, I don't want to. It's fine. You'll be safe. It's okay.
Anne-Marie and her perfect parenting. Beautiful. That's all good. Oh my.
Now we even have a better definition for perfect. We can apply to that. So it's completely
when we do come down to the end and people say, is there something you'd want to share that we didn't get to? I say repair and reconnection is a part of the process. It's a feature, not a bug. So when you fall short, like Anne-Marie says, I'm here to stress you. Not her words, mine. But it is a part of the process. Because we have to learn how to say, is this the type of person I want to be? If it's no, recommit to who you want to be, restore what you broke or lost, and then commit to being different going forward. Right. This is life teaching us who are we when we fall short of our expectations with our kids,
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot to learn. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Sorry, I keep interrupting. I don't know if I've got a delay, but I learn a lot from my 12-year-old. I've always struggled to go sorry and things like that, and she finds it so easy, and she'll just come down, sorry, and I've learned, okay, I'm going to do that. That's you. I'm mirroring you now, and you're teaching me how to behave because it's not how I was brought up. So I think kids really show you who you really are or who you want to be.
It reminds me of this Rumi quote: "If we avoid everything that rubs us the wrong way, however will we shine?"
Very true. You've got the good quotes.
Actually, he
keep them in my back pocket.
He refers to these index cards if he needs to. That's what it is. No, actually, he's doing it without index cards, which is actually more impressive.
I keep them in my afro.
In your afro. Okay. Well, you have a big one, so you have lots of room. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah.
I haven't seen one that big in a long time. That's not been the style for quite some time. So it's cool. kind of good. Oh, okay, you got the comb to go
I
with
kind
it.
of
All
yeah.
right.
This is when I forget something and I need to remember.
Yeah, right.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. There it is.
Oh, I love it. I know that you have another podcast that you're doing after this one, and so we have to kind of cut it a little bit finer than what we would normally do. So I want to make sure we get a couple of things done before we run out of time entirely. First thing I want to make sure that we do, for somebody who wants to reach out to you and converse with you, pick your brain, perhaps share some ideas, maybe tie into the service that you offer, how do they find you? Give us the basics on that.
It'd be marcushiggs.com. I hang out on LinkedIn when I'm not so much on other social media, and I am coming, but marcushiggs.com is where I am.
Okay.
Where you can reach out to me. And the summer's ending, but I have some workshops coming up there soon.
Ooh.
In regards to managing a digital household, and one on identity, actually, because it all starts with a strong identity. So that's where I am. Yeah.
All right.
Easily accessible there.
And we'll include a link to the website too, to make it easy for people to find. But it's always good to hear it directly from the guest's mouth. Second thing we need to do. This is something that I've been doing for a few years now. You made reference earlier to how it doesn't really matter whether or not you hear from somebody later on. You find out how they're doing or whatever. And I want to suggest an add-on, another view to go along with that, because I noticed a few years back that there is one area of the current modern digital technology that we as humans have learned to just take for granted, which is that all this content is being created, and it's being created by a whole bunch of people who have a whole bunch to give, and they're just giving, and they're not getting a whole lot of attention for that. They're not getting a whole lot of credit. And I said to myself, well, I host a podcast. I can do something about that. So Marcus, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been influencing with all the different content you've been putting out there in ways that help them that you don't even know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you. Yeah. You want to know the initial thought I had when you said that?
Sure.
You're going to enjoy this. With the universe behind you, and that's the first thing that we said.
Yes.
I always say, you are the universe experiencing itself. Hearing you say that back to me, I was like, the universe is talking back to me. Thank you.
Oh.
And that really resonated, because sometimes I don't not praise myself, but celebrate myself. And thank you. Your words resonate very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you deserve it. You definitely do.
Yeah.
One last thing we have to do. This is part of our ongoing thing that we do with every episode, and it's one of the most important ones because as the host of the show, I mean, I kind of guide the ship. I'm the one who leads the conversation and so forth. But my co-hosts play a very important role, and one of the most important roles they play is they have the perspective that I don't have. They have the perspective that's almost more the audience perspective. Well, actually, in Anne Marie's case, it literally is, because she was originally an audience member and then she became a co-host. So she literally has that perspective. And as such, she's able to kind of tie things together in ways I don't even think about. So Anne Marie, I'm going to come to you next. I'm going to ask you, I mean, especially since this was one that you were really looking forward to. What's your one tie-up? What's your one way of saying, this is the thing that stuck out to me the most and that I want to bring this to the fore?
I think for me, it was the overall reminder of our children are independent and our children are powerhouses, and it's embracing them as their personalities and their individuality rather than us, and giving them that freedom. And I loved that reminder of it's okay for them to make mistakes. That's how they grow. Brilliant. Thank you. That really helps.
Beautiful. I love it. So you can see why I do this, why my co-hosts are so valued, because they're valued for a number of reasons, but that's one of them, because that perspective is just absolutely invaluable. One other thing I want to ask you in the last minute or two that we have, I want to ask you about where are you going? Like, what's Marcus's future? You've been talking about what you do with kids because that's what we wanted to hear about. But where are you going next?
The vision is to open up communication between parents and kids on a global scene. Mm-hmm. I see that being done with an app. And like I say, we are the stories we tell ourselves. So actually an application for families to talk about their identity, family culture, but then there's also the individual and how do they mix and blend with that. And then that kid can actually take those memories as they grow. I see that in application form. I see that in a book form. But every project that I'm going to put my energy, my life force and energy to, it's communication between parents across generations, communication across generations. I have projects in mind, but that's where you'll find me. You'll find me in between, in the space between, as Dave Matthews said.
A space I'm very familiar with myself, especially with the apps. We could have a whole conversation about that, but we're out of time for today, so I won't be today.
I was just thinking that.
But Marcus, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being who you are. This has been really great.
Yeah,
it was right on time. Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
thank you.
That.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. It was wonderful meeting you as well.
You too.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.